Weber. Herb Olstead.
Suzanne Blackman.
Michael Fee.
Gordon Smith.
Leanne Thompson. Connie Moore.
Victoria Sage.
Pam Birmingham.
And review of the August 20th meeting summary. Was there a summary or just all the minutes?
That's what it is.
The whole thing? You got it? You want to handle that?
What?
Reviewing this?
Oh, I reviewed it. I have no.
I have no.
I believe the intention is to just approve approve or disapprove the minutes and then the minutes.
Someone like to make a motion?
I motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
Connie?
I second it.
Okay. Motion is accepted to accept the minutes from last meeting.
Yeah, I had read them earlier as well, so.
Go to overview. Staff.
Okay, so goal 2 is the land use planning goal. And Ron, you had asked about the checklist, the matrix that you got with goal 1. Goal 2 is unique because there aren't actually any policies. So we're just going to be mostly doing kind of status quo because land use planning is a statewide, it starts with a statewide goal. And the process for the comprehensive plan update will be, we're going to be making suggestions, but those will be need to reviewed for consistency by the DLCD, which is the Department of Land Conservation and Development. They will review the consistency of our land use planning goals with other cities. That's why you got information about the urban growth boundaries in your packets. And then, so we'll be looking at countywide with the rural areas and all of the incorporated cities. And then that will be reviewed for consistency with the statewide planning goals. So land use planning is basically a structure for organizing the way that we look at development throughout the county and the state. So, yeah, that's kind of just the general overview. So, if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to address anything specifically, but, all right.
Questions, concerns?
I was asking, and you said consistent with other cities, is at the end of that, cities within the county or within the county?
Which in turn need to be consistent with the state. So it stands to reason that everyone in the state is consistent with each other, but we don't have the personal power to check that.
Just another quick quickie, because last Monday, Thursday, forget when, you reviewed countywide goal 2 and the farm and forest goals.
That's goal 3, and that's something we're going to discuss next time. So we were a little bit ahead of schedule with the DLCD presentations, but there's so much information, we wanted to give people a chance to marinate in that information first. So the goal 2 presentation was in August, and I forget the date, but
because I got a little confused. Goal 2 is farm, right?
goal 2 is land use planning. It's even the existence of having this process. So it's very broad, but it's just sort of the structure.
But last week, countywide, it was farm and forest.
And that was just the presentations that the Department of Land Conservation and Development was giving to us. But they did do a land use planning presentation back in August. And those, the slides for that material is available online.
Because I was surprised when they were doing I'm sorry, I'm tired. I was in Portland late last night and near enough. Goal for farm that was being addressed was it Thursday? You were there.
Monday.
It was Monday. That it was only exclusive farm use and not RA5. And that's the only 2 zoning things other than forest for ag uses, RA5 and use of farm use.
Well, there are a few different, if your question is about
Then you have
agricultural zoning,
RA20 or...
the county did have RA 20, but I believe in 1997 they changed it
Okay.
all to, I don't know what they changed it to, I haven't done the research on that, but currently there's RA 1 and RA 2, residential agriculture 1 and 2, which both have a 2-acre minimum lot size. I know that's kind of confusing. I believe RA 1 used to have a 1 acre, anyway. And then RA 5, so those are the only residential agriculture zones where sort of residential and agriculture shares priority in that zone. So there's single-family dwellings are permitted and farm use is permitted equally, right? And then there's agriculture forestry, which is forestry and agriculture is permitted equally.
And
That's what mine is.
And that's what yours is?
Yeah.
And that's F80?
That's AF, that's agriculture forestry. F80 is
Okay,
a
so what is this?
timber.
What is the amount, what I'm trying to find out is how many acreage in each step up? So there is a RA5, there is a other thing for farming, which is bigger than 5.
So the big three resource zones that encompass agriculture and forestry are all 80-acre minimum lot sizes. And then from there it jumps down to RA5, which is a 5-acre minimum lot size. RA 1 and 2 have a 2-acre minimum lot
So
size.
EFU has to be 80 acres to get,
It-
no,
for-
it doesn't.
That is the minimum lot size. There may be substandard lots that are currently in existence, but okay.
Okay, so thank you, I was just wondering how.
Did that answer your question?
And then
One way.
R80, R80, okay. And then I know there's forestry 80 that permits agriculture. Yes, we do.
It's still in the code, but we don't actually have any already.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they did take that section out of the Clatsop County Land and Water Development and Use Ordinance.
Okay.
So the language for it's still in there, but it's not, doesn't exist.
In your packet. Okay,
What would it,
right, okay.
what would it take to do
I just
that?
didn't want to pull everything
Oh,
up,
you
so,
can.
so that's why I was trying to figure out which piece we're at.
What would it take to clean up the wording so there's not
I'm sure she said
RA1
somewhere.
and the one that you were just talking about, which I didn't catch, but it's confusing when you're trying to research as just a citizen, landowner, all this stuff, and then you find something doesn't exist anymore, and then it's like, you don't know what to trust anymore. Do you know what I'm saying? If you see RA1 and you're thinking about how you might use it, and then you find out it doesn't exist, or does it say it doesn't exist?
I don't know.
If that could be cleaned up, because there's, I think rightfully so, over the many years, because I believed in planning and the comprehensive plan goals, but over I've lived here since 1971, of dealing with it when the comprehensive plan came in, that it wasn't user-friendly. And people kept getting caught in fulfilling one requirement and then, there's this one over here, and you do another application and that denies you if you've already paid this and you've spent months in the process. And it was really, I think there's still residual anger and it's much better now. But even something little like this, when you're trying to figure out your zoning and everything, if it does not say, when you're scanning online, it
Right.
does not say this no longer is in effect.
But
or
if
something.
so Clatsop County is unique and lucky, and we have this really great tool called Clatsop County Web Maps, and that is how, as staff, that's kind of our first thing we go to, and that's available to the public online, so you can put in your address and pull up exactly which property you're looking at. You can even put in a last name if you want to find someone you know's property. And you can put on the Clatsop County zoning layer, and that'll show.
But this
What?
is because you know how to do it.
But
It's pretty simple.
it's,
I
yeah,
No, I
and I think
know,
we may
but
have
if
talked
some-
about it
But if
before,
somebody
but
wants to know how to deal with their property and they do searches. and
they're welcome to
Come on.
call the office too,
No, I
and we walk through
Okay,
people
all
through
right.
it all the
No,
time.
that's fine.
I'm just letting you know that
I-
that's really
I
the best way right now, and in regards to
But I think-
changing the
Yes, but
the
listen,
labels.
Florence, I'm just giving you some feedback, okay? I'm making a request that if somebody does a search and comes through this other way, that if things are no longer applicable, to just note it.
But this process, isn't this process
That's-
designed to revise, that's what this whole process is
Yeah,
about?
that's what I was getting
Is the
to.
revision
In
of it.
2 to 3 years though.
Well-
Anyway, never mind, it's fine.
That
It's fine. It was
is
just
the pace of,
my request.
Yeah,
It was just that.
Are these
I will bring it
statewide
up at the meeting
zones?
Thursday.
they are unique, they're Clatsop County, but often they are,
Well, let me,
Pam asked if these zoning labels are statewide, and I know that there is a lot of crossover, but it may be not.
So Tillamook County may not.
They may have a slightly different name for something.
Okay,
But
so
that's
these
what
aren't
we have.
mandated by the state. We have some leeway. And in our process, we're updating the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is one thing, and then there's a zoning ordinance, an
Right.
actual ordinance.
Right.
And are we working on that too?
So
Because that's where we would clean
this,
up.
yeah, this is the comprehensive plan update, and the comprehensive plan actually is sort of all of the aspirations that, we can shoot, as Leanne was saying earlier, you can shoot for the moon in the comprehensive plan. The zoning ordinance so the comprehensive plan is the framework for the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance comes later. Right now, this is the Citizen Advisory Committee for the comprehensive plan update. So this is where we're going to, figure out if we want to address certain issues within our region. And then the ordinance is actually the implementation of the comprehensive plan. That's how we use the comprehensive plan for land use regulation. Does that make sense? Okay.
Yes.
All right, and should we get back to the agenda?
Yep.
Great.
All right, go through the go-to overview. Discussion, what issues affect how land is used in Clatsop County? What issues affect how land is used in Clatsop County? Thoughts? What issues affect how land is used in Clatsop County?
Well, see, I own Camp 18, a restaurant, log museum. We bought that property in 1966, and I worked there for like 15 years, our family and stuff, cutting all those stumps, cleared all that land, everything, and then I met Maury Clark, and he said he really liked what I was doing, and so he'd come down, and he would, I'd get a cat or something, and he'd either help me, I'd move it, or he'd help me move it, and this and that, and anyway, that big log in the center there, it took me quite a while to get that because I had to clear the whole thing there. I had big logs in there, and I had this log in there. It was 44 inches on one end, it's 34 on the other end, it's 85 feet long. We figured it weighed close to 20 tons. And so we finally got that log up there. Then I could dig it out there and put the foundation stuff. And Maury's down there one day after I got the big log up there, and he said, gosh, he said, it looks like you could use some cement. See, most of our family and everybody was kind of worked all them years on it. And I said, well, yeah, that'd be great. So, and that was, he said, why don't you go ahead and get it? He said, I'll pay for it. And that was like $8,500 just for the cement around there. So as soon as I got that, then I could do it. But I had my own sawmill and all that junk and timber. And so that's what around there. But truth to tell you, when he said that, to this second, I've never taken another drink of beer or nothing ever. That was just something to really be proud of. Then we worked at that museum there all the time. But now they want to build a big building there. And my understanding is that it goes through you folks too. I don't know what it is. But anyway, Maury Clark and I, he helped me. We built that, we bought that property, the field there, There was a barn and all that stuff there because we was going to expand that logging museum. Well then, anyway, that, so they say now that they want to build a $4 million building or something out there. And that whole field out there, we bought that field. When Maureen and he said, Gordon and I bought that field out there. We bought that field because we don't want anybody coming in here next to us and building I had a road down. Woolen, what they call it? We call it a woolen factory. We don't want someone to build a woolen factory around there because we're trying to build a logging museum, you know what I mean? And, but anyway, when we was going through that, we had to go through a bunch of other stuff, but then we changed it from, we got like Camp 18, a restaurant there, we used to be a restaurant logging museum, well now we had to go through the Justice Department and change that over where, you know, so we could, so because they said that was promoting the restaurant stuff. So anyway, we got that straightened out. But now they're going to build them big buildings out there, and that whole field out there at the barn and all that stuff, that's a big swamp out there, the whole thing.
Do you know what that's zoned? You know what that's zoned for?
RA5.
I didn't hear what you say.
RA5. The zoning is RA5, Residential Agriculture 5.
Oh, yeah. But there's, like, see, we had a meeting yesterday at the Elderberry. I just got in. Yeah. Oh, we had a meeting yesterday at the Elderberry. What the hell time was that? Yesterday?
Yeah, yesterday evening,
Yeah, 10 o'clock. What time?
or whatever, it's in the afternoon.
Oh, it's in the afternoon. Yesterday we had some guys there from the planning. There's only five people on the board of directors on Camp 18 Logging Museum. And anyway, they got most everything there. But they're talking about building this huge building up there. But another thing you don't realize there, we live right there on Wunsch Road. And I got 70 acres there. And then we got another 50 acres at Camp 18. But when we come off on Wunsch Road there, like on a highway, there's a lot of times you can't, you might have to sit there for 15 minutes, like in the summertime, you get on that road. And we never even, like right now, just about when we come there, we hardly never expect to just turn in our driveway. We just go down to Camp 18 turn, because you just can't turn in there. You can't stop the cars behind you. And if there's cars coming the other way, we just go right down there anyway and turn around there. But there's going to be a lot of problems there. And then they said yesterday that they want to put a road from there onto the end of Wunsch Road up there. So, and of course he said that one, Mark Stanley, he's quit now. He's not there anymore, Mark Stanley. But anyway, they was going to take that Wunsch Road and change the end of that. So it just went, because it comes down, goes around out here, and then goes on the highway. And he wanted to take and change that and go right out of the highway. I asked him why he wanted to do that. He said, well, then he can get his big low boys, log trucks and everything, go straight out the road. That's no place to get anything like that. You know, and when we want to build Camp 18, if you can imagine, I even built the deceleration lane going up the highway. We got a fog line, and you got like a 16, 18 foot 2x4 and a level, and went off the smog line there on the highway. There's a bank there. We went a 2-to-1 slope off of the bank down here and went right up the highway, so I more or less run out of dirt and stuff where it goes there. And then we did all that through the state highway. And then, but anyway, we got that fixed. And that, just like now, if we didn't have that deceleration lane in there, that would really be a mess. You know, it's just really, getting on that highway is really bad. And
Is there something, Gordon, that we can help you with?
well, my problem is if they want to build they're talking about a $4 million building and filling that whole thing up there full of rock and driveways and parking lots. And the creek goes right around the whole thing.
On which field? Where the barn is, where the wood is being?
Mark Stanley, see, he wanted to get rid of that barn.
Okay.
But anyway,
Wouldn't you
he's
have
not there
to
to
go
go.
through something?
I can address this.
Okay.
Okay,
Go for
because
it.
Did you
I
have a
say,
question?
well, if it's RA5, how can they build this big, huge
Yeah.
building?
Yeah.
This is worrying
Well,
me.
see,
Yeah.
So I'll just start with the building is actually the new Camp 18 Logging Museum, which as far as I understand is what the
Oh.
purchase of that field is
That's what
intended
they're saying.
for.
But see, other people don't understand the memorial we got right now, there's lucky if there's 2 people go through that day after,
Right.
hardly anybody ever even goes over there. And they got them it's got big porches on there, and you could rebuild them porches and have a beautiful place there on either side. And it's not, and if you could imagine that Mark Stanley told one guy that one of the guys there, he donated a couple $1 million that one by there that he got, and then about 2-3 weeks later, Mark Stanley told him he had a bunch of stuff in the corner there, different things. He wanted to know if he'd take some of the pictures out of there because he needed the room after he put out all that money.
Can I ask you a question?
Huh?
And actually the both of, do you mind if I interrupt and ask a question? For one thing, the Logging Museum could use the Camp 18, it'll use the Camp 18 access, it might. And then on the other piece, could there be cluster development where you just have buildings right next to Camp 18? If indeed this is a permit, because it's...
Yeah, the only building that has been proposed is just the new Camp 18 Logging Museum, and it was my understanding that they needed more space because they had so much memorabilia that was being donated. They started the process because they received that large donation. The land is owned by the Camp 18 board, and so they are the ones who applied to put the new expanded museum in the hopes that it would draw in more traffic. It would look beautiful and become a real tourist attraction.
We need that room there. We've got several cats and different displays put in there, spark trees, rigged spark trees, built, all that stuff.
And that's been permitted, I mean, that's...
They haven't gotten the development permit yet. They're still doing the commercial site plan review, but their parking lot is meets the standards. They've met all of the criteria, and they are not to use Wunsch Road for public access. Like Susanna said, they're sharing the current access, and ODOT was notified, and they didn't have any problem with that. So the Wunsch Road access is only to be used for emergency vehicles. It is just going to remain graveled. So the Wunches were the ones who really brought it to our attention.
And use the one they got now then for the access.
Yeah, right. And they've been one of their conditions of approval is signage along Wunsch Road directing people to the main access.
Well, you know what's going to happen there, I mean, because that just fill up with trucks and stuff that don't know what to turn there, and it may just be a real mess. They'll try to get, if they block that off and you've got that line coming down, the road comes in there quite a ways before it turns off.
Yeah.
And goes on the highway.
They're not blocking Wunsch, they're just...
Well, they say they're not.
Well, that's one of their conditions of approval, and if they don't meet their conditions of approval, then they may be in violation.
So you're not part of the Camp 18 thing anymore?
Well,
I'm just,
okay.
it sounds like you're not part of this project, so I was just,
I'm the executive director of Camp 18 Logging Museum, whatever that means.
okay.
When I go to a meeting, I can go to the meeting, and I figure, there's like got a big tank there, and it's starting to turn. We need to be rebuilt, worked on, and there's different things. We need a whole bunch of different things. So when I go to a meeting, I say we need to fix that tank up there. We need to do this. We need to do that and there. And so the first thing when we open the meeting, I tell them what we need to do for work out there, and then anyway, I usually got about 5 minutes or so, and then I got to leave. I can't be at the meeting. See, they had the meeting at Camp 18 for 20 years, but when Mark Stanley got it, then he moved it up there, so now they pay rent on that, and then whatever they do up there. But,
Is there a this woolen factory? Is there anybody talked about that or pulled a permit to do anything like that?
A woolen? No, I have not heard anything. I forgot to answer your question before. In the RA5 zone, a commercial use is only permitted under a home occupation, but this is being looked at as a public or semi-public use, which is allowed. So because it's a museum that is operated by a board, right?
Not this.
So we were able to do it in the RA5 zone.
So the woolen thing doesn't exist?
No. not to my knowledge.
But
Can I ask a question?
I don't know if it will ever.
If it's a wetland going right into Humbug, how can they justify
we're talking about 3
use of the land there?
They are proposing any development within the wetlands.
And then you've got to have septic.
And
Where are you
they're
going to put a
proposing,
leaching field? I mean,
they're
it's a
proposing
wetland.
to do a new septic system, and they'll have to meet whatever the septic department's criteria are for that. So we're just, and they haven't gotten their final development permit, we're just gonna look, we don't have any jurisdiction over the septic field, we just wanna see
Yeah.
a sign off from that department.
But see that Humbug Creek, right behind Camp 18.
Right.
Is right there.
And the Department of State Lands were notified that they're not proposing any development in the wetland.
Yeah, but out there, that field out there, there's Maury Clark, right? That's what I was saying, Maury Clark, and he was, in the meeting, he was telling Gordon, and I bought that property, we're gonna build out there, but not build, but we're gonna extend our log museum out there. And there's, right now, you go into where their exit is right now, entrance, you go in right there, you can turn there, and there's hardly any room, there's room there to turn and stuff there. But he's going to need a big parking area for that. And to put that septic tank in there, I don't know how many, see, that's just like a swamp. There's little creeks going all through that whole field right there.
So are you saying that this supposed proposed project doesn't, if that one wouldn't go through the Camp 8? I mean, you probably wouldn't want it going through your property to exit. I mean, to me, this is a really bad thing because the highway gets so crazy with tourists. It's so
It
dangerous.
is dangerous.
Man, it's so bad you can't believe it.
So you don't own that land.
Huh?
You own the land that Camp 18 is
Right.
on, but you don't own,
No. When you go in there, the big dining car there,
yeah.
well, with that big dining car there, I moved that over. You maybe moved that, but when I moved that over there, when they put their exit in there, and the dining car is sitting right here, a few feet inside the line there, and they're there, and right through that center. That line, the main line goes from the exit there, goes right down through that, between the dining car and through that house up there. So part of that house belongs to me, I mean, the land.
Okay.
And that's where we got, they was trying to get a property, property.
Lot line adjustment.
Lot line adjustment. And I could, if they did that, the line would go right against my shop back there. And I couldn't have that, anyway, that's,
So,
but what I can't see is them building
Victoria.
anything in that swamp.
so
Yeah.
all this, this is new construction.
Mm-hmm.
All of his, as far as you know, all the permits in order to go forward, or what do you think?
From our department, the only thing that is going to be required is the conditional use permit, which they've been approved conditionally for. So the conditions like number of parking spaces, an approved septic system, state and federal permits like Department of State Lands or wetlands, ODOT access permit. And ODOT is the one who would be dealing with the safety of Highway 26. I mean, and that's something that we don't really have any way to say if it's not a county road. We can't say that this isn't going to work because of the level of trips or whatever. So
any other permits?
there will be a grading, drainage, and erosion control
Be
review,
through who?
and then a development permit. And I don't know what all the other,
Okay, have you guys got those in order?
What's
but
that?
the septic department, the
The DQ?
DEQ will need to be done. And I know that they've been talking to the head of environmental
Good,
health.
okay.
Michael McNair.
So what can we help you with?
What's that now?
So what can we help you with?
Well,
What's your reason?
Okay.
Your real reason for coming here, we can help
okay,
you.
that whole field is a swamp.
Okay?
And how anybody could ever put septic tank or anything like that in that big swamp? There's if you go down and look at it, you see where the grass is growing there, all the way through there. It goes right straight in the creek right there, right alongside the barn. I live right across the
Sounds
creek.
like they can't do it.
Well, that's something that the
DEQ
DEQ does. It's not us.
So wait a second. Do you want to do that or not?
Want to do what?
Put the septic in?
No.
They would have to do that if they develop that.
He's concerned about water quality. I'm guessing.
Well, I mean,
So we've got.
nobody else can build like that.
So for your new construction,
W-
you would need that?
I don't have anything, or not gonna have anything to do with their deal there.
Oh, so this is, okay.
But
Our
aren't there,
concern is contamination of the humbug.
Right.
yeah.
Correct.
It's just,
I mean, you can't put a parking lot over
Now, aren't there
a
high-tech
wetland.
They do
septic
this sort of
systems
thing in
right
town all
up
the time
front?
with no issues. Why would that be an issue?
they what now?
They build on wetlands all the time. That's what my whole thing on this, they get away with all that in town, but we can't do it out here.
Well, I think even.
I mean, wetlands, yeah, no, it happens.
Yeah.
Housing
So those are-
projects stacked on top of swamps. My brother built several. What's good for the goose isn't usually good for the gander out here.
So that, in my mind, raises a bigger issue, which is when we're looking at Goal 2, land use planning, how is it applied in a rural area versus how is it applied in an urban area? And if this committee, given this case example, says this is a concern for us, that to me would seem to be a valid concern to raise for the larger group to consider. And if I can just insert my own thing, it isn't just what's on paper designed and approved or permitted, it's who's monitoring afterward and enforcing the conditions. So a law is only as good as the enforcement of it after the fact. And for me, that's an issue that this committee, you all have talked to me in various ways at various times about your concerns, and those are the two issues I hear repeatedly. What's allowed, and then who's doing the reality check, what they call in the forest the ground truthing, the enforcement on the effect of what happens as a result of development. Have I heard you correctly? Is that your concern? So the record should reflect that then, and when you go to the larger group to talk about differential standards for urban and rural areas and enforcement of standards as they impact, I'm just going to say quality of life, whereas they follow the rules that they said they would follow when they're built. Because if they don't follow that, in some cases, those things get amended or torn out or whatever, but there is some consequence for lack of compliance. So the consequences for lack of compliance in effect in the real world, because that's what I hear you being concerned about today in this, because somebody can say something and ODOT for the traffic, given their accounts and their engineers, and they have manuals, and they make my eyes cross sometimes, but they're good people, they want to do right. But somebody has to keep saying, and here's the real impact in the real world. And in rural Clatsop County, that's what I hear again and again, is we need monitoring and enforcement that is after the fact, that deals with impacts.
And that has strong enough penalties, because I've seen developments in the more urban areas where they know they're probably building on wetlands or marginal areas, and they go ahead and do it because the fines or the remedies, the penalties are small enough, they'll just kind of eat that as a write-off and go ahead and get away with.
Cost of doing business.
Yes.
So on the other end, how can we word things, ahead of time? Because that's what these preventative measures and standards are there for. That's why DEQ is the one signing off, because they're the ones who have the body of knowledge in order to recommend a certain type of septic system. So, how can we, on our end, ahead of time, prevent
They have legal
the
authority.
need for compliance?
Because there's creeks run right through there, and it's all winter,
Yeah, well, and I'm thinking if it's that close to the creek, what about the runoff from the big parking lot?
Well,
You know,
stormwater drainage is
exactly.
something that they do address.
But, see, there's
Rain gardens and such.
they got the one with the big dining car is in that caboose there. Well, that one caboose has got a restroom in, men and women's restroom in a caboose. And so we got a tank right outside that there, and the line runs clear over there, and it goes over and it goes right in where they want to build that deal over there, right next to the memorial that's there now. But they never use it much, but anyway, that's right there. And they said they can go next to that.
So the impact on existing structures and operations, is that a third concern?
What now?
The impact on existing structures and operations, because that's the underlying concern that I
But I
hear.
can just, none of that, you can see people going down the highway, the way they drive nowadays, and they see something real fancy going up there and looking around. I mean, that's another, it's a damn danger to the highway too.
Yeah. Well, when I think of your big parking lot for the restaurant itself, it feels like it's, it's set next to the highway. I don't even think about runoff, but when I think about us putting this big parking lot in the middle of a swampland, it seems like the runoff is going to do something different than the existing parking lot. That's why I brought that one up.
There's one guy's got some property just above me, and that's the end of the lunch road. They only come out about once every week or so. He's got a family, but they swim in the creek in the summertime.
So stronger language for how to deal with environmental quality concerns up front.
Yeah, I think a lot of people
Yeah.
just don't think about runoff.
Beforehand.
Okay.
Especially, and then if you're looking at urban versus rural, well, okay, so, I don't know if this is going to sound good or not, but it's like everything's already wrecked environmentally in certain areas in Portland, so I don't know if that has any bearing on how they decide things, but it's like, it's already contaminated. So I don't know how much they put into that, where this is more pristine, we're out in the rural area.
But see, in that field out there, I was going to put all the helicopter pad and stuff out there. We put a bunch of dead men in there. I was going to raise a tree there and everything. Then we found out that you can't didn't want a thing out there for a helicopter or something. It's got the guidelines. Is that you? We got all the guidelines from in California, down south, down Roseburg. Give me a whole truck with the guidelines. And we put them all in the tree there. But then out there, I have another tree there, and I raised the tree we got there now at Camp 18. There raised out, and we was going to have a tail tree back out on the field there. We had got all the dead men dug in there and all that stuff. They had to make their own stumps and all that. But then we decided you can't do that. And then right straight across from Camp 18, across the road, then I got a helicopter pad. And it sits in all the things that people got there so they can land a helicopter there. Because sometimes a logger get hurt, and they had a helicopter pad at Elderberry, but that fog comes from through Vernonia, goes all the way down in the Hale River, down there, and a lot of times it's just solid fog there, and a lot of times they can't land there. And if he gets hurt, he don't have time to drive to the border or something. It don't last that long. So it's just, and took a long time to try to figure out something.
Well, even with that, we went through that last year, was the fire station one. Does have a helicopter pad, and then we got a lighted windsock for that purpose. That's station one.
So resilience and emergency, because there was a ambulance coming down the highway this morning on my way here. So people get hurt all the time, as you said, Suzanne. With more and more traffic, there's going to be more and more accidents. So when we're looking at the impact of how do we protect public safety in terms of ambulances and helicopters, that's really critical out here because of all the people who are coming through and all the people who are still working.
I see Maury Clark when I bought that field and all that stuff. We bought all that stuff, so we'd have work, so somebody else wouldn't build in there. Something that we didn't want to build in there. We're trying to build a log museum. We need a lot of space for a log museum. That one logging show we had there in it's on I think your thing now, but that was a really good show. I mean, you remember that one? Remember that logging show we had there? That was a real good show. Guys climbing trees, doing everything there, and that was, but we still need a lot of parking there.
Special, is that a special event?
Yeah.
So there's special events that are happening as well. So it isn't just the traffic that comes through, there's destination traffic, and you're talking about the museum and the special shows and all that too.
Well, and I'm already noticing traffic backing up, coming into, where Baker's store is. I mean, because I use that route quite a bit and then take 103, and it'll stack up multiple times a week. It's not even just a Sunday.
Yeah, more and more.
I want to ask her that same question. What issues affect how land is used in Placer County?
No, this one
First
here.
bullet, what do you think? What's your feeling?
What issues affect how it is used? I couldn't tell you. Our issues out here are so much different than in town.
This is
I think the main concern I've had
Out here.
from this was we were not represented very well out here. And when we do go in somewhere, a lot of times it falls on deaf ears. We don't have any votes
out
so
here.
who cares? That's my and a lot of people's feelings about Clatsop County. If we could have our own county out here, we'd be real happy.
Boy.
Let me just tell you, so just to say, you have a vote, but the problem is you have one vote. This district is over half of the land mass of Clatsop County.
I know.
And I know you know, and I have been struggling, as you probably know, to have your voice heard. It takes 3 votes. And so I've done what I can do to increase the critical mass to get to 3 votes on any issue, and helped with alternative ways like getting stories in the media and all that kind of thing. But we've got a new county manager who came on yesterday, came from Washington County. So I'm going to meet with him next week, and I'm going to talk to him about the power dynamics, because basically you've got 3 commissioners from Astoria, you got 1 from Warrenton, and then you have your commissioner. And I do my best to do what I can, but it's not an easy game to play because I'm not part of the Astoria power structure.
So how do we help you with the other 4?
You reach out, good question, because you reach out to them. Somebody talked to me yesterday about a project they have. What we've seen is to get yourself up to Astoria and testify in the public comment section. It's a long slog for 3 minutes. I can try and get you on the agenda, but the chair isn't particularly responsive to my requests. I'm being polite here.
Who's the chair now?
Sarah Nebeker.
That's
So
And
public
public comment. You are
comment.
entitled to have as many people as you want come to public comment, and Ron's done it. It took a while, but it was effective, because then a couple of things happen. You're part of the permanent record. The way things operate now, we are not allowed to respond to you. Commissioners are not allowed to respond. We're not allowed to question. We are not allowed to respond to public comment. Oh well, that's why I ran for chair. I didn't get it. The second thing is you are part then of the public record, so you can refer to it, and you also have public visibility. And it's that public visibility. I'm not going to say you're going to shame people into doing the right thing, but you will highlight issues in such a way, because you have been polite, you have been compelling, and ultimately been effective. I have 2 words for you: Maple Road. Didn't it just take a number of years, but finally that happened. And it's the persistence of your representatives who have come, both on the dais and off, to see that you are heard. But when I took office in 2015, I was the 5th Clatsop County Commissioner from this district in 7 years. It's supposed to be a 4-year term. There has been a churn of the county commission. I am the first District 5 county commissioner to be re-elected since the Home Rule Charter went in. My sweet husband says I can do this for as long as I want to, so I'm looking at being 77 years old, running for my third term on the Clatsop County. Well, why not, right? What are you going to do with your life? You might as well get up in the morning and say, I'm going to try and make a difference here. But it takes persistence, it takes professionalism, and it takes having a good point of view that represents the best. And your representatives have done that and keep on doing that because that's the way. But it does take persistence, it does take professionalism, it does take patience.
And if we can't get to a meeting, are written comments or email comments, do they become part of the public record, like public testimony?
Not necessarily.
Oh,
Not
really?
necessarily. You can request, no, you know,
It's
bite my tongue here.
something
No,
that
not
just
necessarily.
dawned on me, like silly. I don't mind running with the ball. I just don't know what they are.
Right,
What are your needs?
yeah.
Right.
What's going on?
I want to hear the details.
Yeah, so
Because
that's,
I
I-
want to know too.
Yeah.
I mean, you're working on
What my
your
issues,
needs, your needs.
Yeah.
my
I'm
needs,
sure
I don't have
there's
any
some of the
personal
same
needs
way.
maybe, but it's just people that say that own 40 acres at Mullenback Road and the county won't let them build a house there. My nephew, he sold the property and moved to Banks. I mean, it's things like that that eat at the people out here. You own a piece of land, you can't build on it. I got 37 and a half acres where I live, Tweedle Road. I can't build another house on it. If I wanted to, I would. I don't. But it's owned in, in timber production. It's things like that is what the people that I know out here, and I know a lot of them, I've been here my whole life, that you're so restricted by what you can do with your own property.
So,
It's like you never own it. You're just renting it till you die. You're paying property taxes on it through your nose, and as soon as...
There's more
You
truth
don't
than
need-
poetry to that.
No, it's not ours. You're renting it from the state.
Veronica, all these things he's mentioned, like acreage, is there ways to help people change that so they can do different things? Or is it like,
Well, it depends on the zone, and I don't know what it is.
Okay.
But
Well, that's the thing.
It
We're
sounds
zoned
like-
out of business out here. In the early 70s, I was on the school board here, and we built a new school and thought we needed to build it a lot bigger because there was going to be a lot more people out here. And there was old houses. Gordon, you remember there's probably 40 or 50 houses between Fishhawk Falls and Elsie that aren't here no more,
Yeah, that's right.
and where people live. And then now you can't build there. But we thought the school would get a lot bigger. It hasn't. I mean, somewhat, because we're zoned out of business. Places where there used to be houses, you're not allowed to build anymore. Acreages of smaller acreages. I'm not talking about this agriculture zoning out here is nuts.
So,
You can't make a living on agriculture out here.
so here's
You
the-
can have a hobby, and but you're like, my nephew was supposed to make $40,000 a year receipts on this 40 over like 2 years, and then maybe he could build a residence there. You're not going to do it unless you're growing dope or something.
So the thing to do is to convene. So you have to get people together to act. When you do buckshot isn't good in this regard. You need some place to convene. You need a convening body or group to pull yourself together into a concerted thing. That's number one. Number two, your state representative is Tiffany Mitchell. She says she wants to help you. If you want to help you, go to her and tell her, because these are state laws that...
Is she from Tillamook?
No, she's from Astoria.
That's okay.
Okay, so...
That's our state rep,
That's your state rep.
not senator.
No, she replaced Debbie Boone.
Right.
So Debbie Boone retired after long and noble service, but now you have a state representative. If you convene and develop a common story, a common problem, and you're already there, you just need to sit down together and figure out how to put it down on paper. And then you go to your state representative or ask her to come to you. It's probably better to go to her, but whatever. She's the one who can ostensibly have an impact on the state land use laws. This is a problem all over Oregon. but there has to be critical mass of opinion that cares about it and wants to change it at the state legislature.
So you'd have to convince the whole legislature to, if I had 5 acres and I wanted to build a house on it, it's not zoned for that.
Okay.
You know, it's supposed to have 20 or 80. So you think we're going to convince everybody in Salem to change
You
that?
know what, here's the deal. There are urban groups, somebody said it's, 1,000 Friends of Oregon, and other people who believe in dense land use. Okay, that's fine for them. We have a housing crisis, and we've had it. You've got the available resource, but the rules don't allow you to use it in a way that would benefit you and benefit the people who want it. So, yeah,
Can I ask
that is your
Florence?
best chance, is to talk to your state representative.
So Florence, Victoria, I'm sorry, I think of you, anyway, pardon me. Victoria, who ultimately, because there is discretion within Clatsop County how the zoning, because now there's no RA1 and there's this and that, and Clatsop County influenced a lot of that, did it not?
Well, when the comprehensive plan was developed, what they did was they looked at what the existing uses were in different areas, and that's how...
But that has changed over time.
Right, and that's one of the reasons we're updating it.
So what I'm asking is, precisely, is when it changes, where does the change come from? What is the process? Because I think this is what we need to get to out here. I mean, I had a house burned down and I forgot to get it rebuilt within 2 years and then forget it. Because I'm F80, right? So there's one of the many houses that doesn't exist anymore. There's a little, I haven't let it go down. It was an old logging camp house I'll use as a camp office maybe someday. But it's no longer, but I could never have that as a resident. I mean, because mine was a logging camp and there were a variety of houses. So, but this is true. This is true up and down the valley of, right, of logging camps. This was how a lot of the population in those houses are burning and rotting and abandoned, and there's just, and so with the zoning, I think there's a lot more creative zoning. And just last little thing, when I was calling around when I was doing a forestry survey of forest landowners, the same thing of, I want another family member here, and they won't, it doesn't fit here and there and there. I just think there are ways of it, like cluster development, where you put them all together within a forested area. If would be okay, if just, if you're a family, you want to have one family or something. But anyway, that's it.
I think, and I'm thinking, of his example, and I also was talking with, this wasn't Clatsop County, but the Jim Dandy little farm store thing that's over in Manning. She said that they're building, that there's going to be a huge housing development behind her. And then she says they've torn down a whole orchard that's going to be developed. So my concern, because believe me, I've faced the same thing that you're talking about, that I haven't been able to divide my place up or do anything with it. My concern is, do we end up with these, because there's huge amounts of money coming from all over the world into the United States, developing. So the problem is, how do we balance your needs with somebody with tons of money just plunking some huge building or a huge housing development in the middle of what has made Oregon what it is right now. That's what I worry about, is because these people with big bucks, they can just hire the lawyers and the designers and whatever to say what needs to be said to these people, and boom, they've got it.
And there's transient occupancy, because the house next door to me used to be owned by two of the most far-left, green environmentalists you ever want to know. And when they couldn't get the money they wanted when they sold their house, it's now Airbnb, and so is the house next door. Well, so if the needs are housing, permanent housing, and the need is to amend the restrictive zoning in rural areas to allow housing, I'd submit that there's a third part to that. And you want to make it so that it is not used for transient occupancy, because you pointed to it, Connie, it's the money. People got money and they want to make money. How do we balance community needs? And in my mind, it's so that there is restriction on what's allowed in terms of transient occupancy.
And I've always been frustrated with the minimum lot size of RA5, because I have 21 acres along the river, and I mean, I did do cluster development, and I could maybe do cluster development, but the way it is, if I wanted to, I could sell 5 would be a McMansion, and each one of them probably, et cetera, if I didn't control, anyway. So I think that I think the whole thing of cluster development, and if indeed there were houses before, what were the houses like? Were they the usual, not very big houses? They were very just like 2, 3 bedrooms, right, Herb? A lot of the old houses were simple, and if you use the criteria of what went before and what is the ambiance of now, I think a lot of the housing is still somewhat modest. Are there many McMansions around here? I'm trying to
So that sounds like a design review.
Yeah,
Well, along 26.
should be able to make restrictions on it.
Well, if
And then the
Walls
other,
and entrance walls that cost more money than I could ever afford.
there is one more big thing to me. We have been trying to get from the fire department, and me personally, a lot of stuff of the strip by Camp 18 Elderberry Inn, a speed reduction with ODOT. And not enough people have died. You know, we don't have a huge population, and so unless there are tourists, we don't have enough people dying to get ODOT to do something. And I worry about what Gordon was talking earlier, if there's a big influx of traffic in the unregulated, I mean, they have a turn lane at Camp 18. But to demand traffic safety studies and have your own ability to influence. Because the local people know, as who was talking about the fog? It was Gordon who was talking about the local people often know the hazards. And ODOT is, they're number crunchers, and boy, they have all their formulas, and it has been insane, because you've done it some, right? Of trying to get ODOT to reduce speed.
It's interesting.
It's just, and you mentioned it's slowing down. I mean, it's still congested. And it's just, I think of my friends who've been injured there, but they didn't die. It's crazy. And everybody who ever drives it goes, when they drive through, it's kind of like, what's going on here?
Let's try to get through these other
Yes.
2 discussion points. What are some of the climate change? What are some ways that climate change should be addressed in the comp plan? Climate change.
Fire.
Thoughts?
Climate's been changing since God made Earth. I don't believe there's any big issues. I don't.
Are there things out here that are being done that affect climate change?
That are being done?
Yeah.
Oh,
That affect climate change?
Yeah,
yeah.
Man-made things? I don't
should be addressed.
What about the marijuana grows?
Well, okay, I'm glad you brought that up, 'cause I didn't know if this was the place, but
We'll see.
now, I live on Tweedle Road for 42 years, and they put a hemp farm in 2 years ago, about 1,000 feet from my house. Now it smells like I live in a skunk cabbage patch.
That's
Oh,
right.
I am so
Yeah.
sick and tired of that stench. This morning was really nice. I guess the air was the inversion of the air. It stinks to high heavens.
So I don't know if that fits your
Is that
technical definition of climate change, but if you're dealing
Somebody
with
asked
air
about it.
quality.
In an abstract sense?
No, it-
Well, it's air quality
Yeah.
issue.
Oh,
because-
the air quality, I mean, it's
I mean, you
unbelievable.
can't smell Fran's Bakery in Portland anymore because that's air pollution.
Right.
But you're living in a skunk cabbage nest.
Oh, that's what it
Okay.
smells like,
Yeah.
and in the morning it's worse than evening when it's cooler, for some reason.
Yeah.
We've been lucky we didn't have much east wind this year, right, it got it worse, but it's unbelievable now. I guess this would be in the zoning thing, I don't know if anybody gets the Capital Press. But this week, the winery suing the marijuana farm next door because it contaminated the smell, contaminated the grapes. Nobody will buy the grapes anymore. And they won't even come and visit, the tours of the winery. And so it's a big lawsuit. It'll be interesting to see where that goes.
Back to the money.
That might take care of your problem.
Well, I don't know, but I'll tell you, it's putrid.
I understand, I really understand, that's why I raised the issue.
Yeah, is that,
It
it
is.
probably hasn't been come up in Clatsop County maybe yet, but it's about a 14 or maybe 15 acre patch. And man, does it put out a...
That's a real good segue to the next bulletin.
Okay.
How can public health issues be addressed in land use planning?
Okay, so I was maybe thinking of attacking both of them with this one. We've got a whole bunch, we've got what they figure 100 people a day moving into Oregon. And we've got a lot of homeless people out there, that's a whole nother piece. I worry, living in the middle of a forest, that somebody's going to just kind of, for whatever reason, a weekend thing that they want to do, or somebody just needs a place to stay or whatever, and all of a sudden there's an illegal campfire, and all of a sudden everything's up in flames. So whether you call it climate change or, I think it can just be human change. And so I'm going to say something about, I don't know that we've thought, and maybe just now when you think about I think more needs to be done to take care of the forests from people that just really either are struggling or don't know what they're doing. And it's a health and safety thing. We can all end up dead or off in 2 counties away.
Well, I'm out in the woods all the time, my logging business, and you see some really foolish things going on.
Yeah.
People that don't know better, starting fires and sparks flying when it's, August, September,
Yeah.
like a normal September, maybe really dry. And they're not educated and,
Yeah.
be careful with fire, I guess, I don't know. They didn't listen to Smokey the Bear when they were in grade school like we did.
Well, that hasn't been used in a long time, that's the problem.
But you see a lot of that.
Would, I add something on that?
Yeah.
I'm a woodland owner. I've got 100 acres that it's a big area for me to monitor. We had a bunch of tweakers not too long ago out there cooking meth in the woods.
Oh my gosh.
And, who do you go to about situations like
Yeah.
this?
Our new deputy sheriff, which is in El San Jewel now. Steve?
He's graduating soon, I think, and is gonna move out.
Oh, it's so nice.
So rather than calling it climate change, I'm just saying that I think there's this whole thing in terms of protecting the forests and protecting the health and safety of rural Clatsop County. And I think that it doesn't have to even be labeled under climate change.
Well, whatever, like for the fire, right? Maybe more billboards along the highway, and I don't know how you educate because there's a lot of people coming from, urban and city areas. They just don't have a clue about it.
Tweakers don't care.
Well, no, there you go.
Just
If you're going to be out
You're
down
at-
there,
you're at
I
the
know.
Well, there's
So,
lots of information.
education and enforcement.
Right, yeah, enforcement. Most people, I know a few people that have got, well, I don't really know them, but I know what happened to them that were doing that, they didn't do a thing to them. you know, a little slap on the hand, big fires. We've been lucky, we haven't had any big fires in Clatsop County for long, since Tillamook burned.
Right, nobody remembers that.
The
But,
Fire
really,
Association, I'll bring it up at our meetings, we need to put more signs out, if that's the case.
Yeah.
I think,
Don't bear signs.
yeah,
I mean, that's the best, sometimes that's.
and it's too bad the schools don't educate,
Oh, speaking
like they used to, you know, when we were young.
Oh,
Fire prevention was a big deal, wasn't it, Gordon?
Yeah.
After the Tillamook burn, I mean, it went on for years.
Tillamook burn, I think, it's 365,000 acres.
Yeah.
So the October 13th week, I think, is Fire Prevention Week, and that's one of our agendas for the association is to K through 5. We're doing the fire prevention stuff for them, and we've done it for like 3 years.
Oh, up here at the school?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I'm the match guy.
Well, that's-
Don't play with matches.
That's great. Well, and your newspapers
Yeah.
and your radio stations
Yeah.
and billboards. I mean, you know, you can help some people do the right thing, and some people just have to be stopped. They don't care. They're impaired.
yeah.
They're impaired. I mean, we get beach fires on top of the rocks. It was a retired Fish and Wildlife guy who came down from Nehalem to build his beach fires with his buckets full of firewood, telling me it was legal. No, it's not. In our part of the world, it has to be built below the high tide line, but people don't do it unless they're enforced. You can tell them and they don't believe you, or they do it again when your back is turned. So how do you protect lives and property? Because what we're talking about is people's lives and people's property. And that doesn't matter to some people.
If they don't have anything,
They got nothing to lose.
so what do you do with the homeless?
Right.
Yeah, yeah. There are social issues, but the quality of life. I mean, what I hear, the common theme for me in all of this, you're talking about your quality of life. You're talking about the air you breathe. You're talking about your ability to have decent housing and to have some sense of control over your life and your property.
I can go ahead and get a hold of, like you talked about earlier, the 2 radio stations we got. Fire Prevention Week is coming up. It's a big deal. Let them in on that. And I know the 2 guys will just run with that on the radio. It is Fire Prevention Week.
And the papers.
Yeah, true that.
One of the questions here is how's climate change, can we address it in the comp plan? One of the things I see we can do possibly within these rural zonings, can we within there suggest fire clearance around houses?
Yeah, there are standards for fire breaks, specifically in the forest zones, but I mean, it's not a terrible idea to extend that to
Yeah.
all zones.
And the
Yes.
Ashland Fire Department put out a really good plant list, and it's really easy to tell. Green means it's okay to have around your house. Yellow is caution, and red is don't have within 200 feet of your house. And I thought, I have alder all around my house, and I was thinking, oh, I probably need to get rid of these. And he said, no, they have so much moisture, they almost act as a fire break. So alder is good. I know in forestry it's treated as a weed and cut down, but alder would slow, if not stop, a fire. It's the fir, it's the conifers you don't want close to your house because they're much drier.
Remember that?
That's interesting.
Remember that? You remember that? Remember that picture they did with that? On the degree of grade, how not to have anything within like 30 feet.
Oh, right.
That was impressive.
That's under standards
That's required, right?
too, yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
To build a house in a forest zone, that break is required.
Your house is a little low, don't put your plants up against it, because it's just gonna come uphill.
Yeah. Oh,
Well,
yeah.
you know, so here's a kind of out there thing, but the Boyington building is a TV studio, and there are cameras in it. We only use it to record the county commissioners meeting, because part of the cable franchise agreement with Comcast was we got a public access TV show, and they gave us the money, and we spent it on cameras. So you could do public service announcements You could take pictures of what the tweakers are doing out in the woods. You could take photographs of your life here. I mean, we don't have a way to deal with it yet, but again, we got a new county manager, so I'm hopeful that there will be some more better use. Because if you want to educate people, they only have to watch the cable access channel. You can make the informational public service announcements and put them up on YouTube and talk to the Visitors Association and talk to some other people. I mean, it's a longer term, more creative way to do that we don't have yet. It could be part of the county website. Who goes there? Put it up on YouTube. Get it associated with Oregon Travel, Travel Oregon and all those folks. Because what we're trying to do, because they're going to kill themselves too, but they don't care as much as we care.
Yeah. I mean, one trouble with the homeless is that Astoria kicked them out, I think. Or a lot. I mean, they have changed off so many.
They did? Oh, no.
They went on that.
And so the cities are doing that. So where are they going?
Yeah.
Into the woods. But I know out here, I think some of them are the ones who really want to be not seen for a variety of reasons that make them sometimes more difficult to deal with. There's a lot of reasons, I
Well,
think, why.
Mechanic and Junction's a center for it.
Yeah.
It's getting terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Highway 53, Connie's house.
Yeah.
Connie's house.
Yeah, in fact, well, here's the deal, is that I've personally witnessed 3 fires that were associated with tweakers. 3 big fires, and thank heavens the one that was a half mile from my house, or a mile from my house, was in the wet spring. If it had been in August, I may not be here right now.
Was that Crystal's?
Yeah.
So that's a real quality of life. That's a climate, it's a social climate more than a natural world. It's still an impact in the natural world that rural Oregon has to deal with, that Elsie Vine Maple Jewel has to deal with, rural Seaside has to deal with. How to bring it up to people's attention, because you want your voice to be heard. So it's got to be more than your voice. It's got to be a compelling case, professionally presented, and you have to be persistent with it. But then you can make a difference with policymakers, because this is a rural problem. It isn't an urban Portland problem. So how are you going to convince those people? Well, they want to come here and play. So you convince them that they don't want to turn into a crispy critter when they come here to have a good time. I mean, you speak to their self-interest in this to help us have a livable community.
We need to move on.
Yeah.
Public comment? Any final thoughts, concerns, issues?
Well, I have things about what forests can do to help with, I know you don't agree with climate change, but I do. But forests, yeah.
That's another goal.
Oh, you were asking about climate change, and I mean, what we have out here that affect climate most are forests, and I don't. Anyway, it's okay. Another day. Another day.
Any more
I
thoughts?
guess basically.
Background material for next meeting.
Okay. So next meeting is going to be goal 3, which is agricultural lands. And these materials will be available on the website. I will get a sign up from you if you'd like to be on the mailing list, and I send out a link to materials when they're ready, if you would like. And so there's a nice little blurb that the department put together that's an overview of the agricultural lands goal 3. Then we're going to move into the statewide planning goal for goal 3, and then the countywide element. And after that, there are 2 reports from the DLCD, the 2016-2017 Oregon Farm and Forest Report, which is a lot of technical data. And then also...
Is that from ODM?
It's from the Department of Land Conservation and Development.
And because ODF had a long forest report that I didn't get.
Yeah, I think
You
we...
want copies of this?
Oh, I did one.
Oh, no, that's yours. That's yours. did everyone, did all the CAC get one?
I get one. I can go get one. I can go get a copy.
Hey, I don't want to take your call.
I can go get a copy.
All right.
Does anybody else want a copy?
I would, if you got, you know, if you get one.
Yes?
I do like paper, if you
I'll go
don't
down,
mind.
I'll go down to the printer office. I can do that.
And I come through
It
here,
won't take long.
I come through here all the time, so if someone else still needs a copy, then I could just get another copy from you.
I'm gonna go do
Is
that.
there-
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll do that as soon as we,
Thank you.
Okay, just make sure you do have them
And this is
for
our
next meeting.
Right,
This is the
right.
material.
No, I can come through here, I'll just hook up my schedule with him.
All right.
Do you have it, oh, yeah, but no, the date of the next meeting on here, I'm not seeing it.
comment, you got any closing comments?
Closing comments, I think maybe my closing comment is that, that I'd like to see us, I don't want to bury climate change, I just think there's a lot of overlapping issues so that we don't have to trip over the whole term of climate change, and so I'm requesting that we broaden the scope of the concerns and find the places where we can meet and overlap.
Common ground.
Yeah.
I think that that's something that will be woven through all of the goals
Okay.
ultimately.
Okay.
Closing comment?
No.
Like I said earlier, if I just knew what you guys needed, I could figure it out and run with it to the correct people and their friends. Just lay it out for me. A lot of this stuff for me, I read it, and it's like I can't apply it to anything because I haven't lived it. The trouble. I told Sandy that my wife was last night. It's so much easier. The stuff in my life, I know by heart of how to make it work or not make it work, or just ignore it. Yeah, just let me know. And would you like to make a motion?
I make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Connie?
And I seconded.
And the meeting, second.
Thank you. One thing I was going to say, our family was all born in Astoria. My dad was born in 1895. I graduated out of high school right here. And spent our 4 years in service. Him and I was working at one time. But anyway, this, we got 15 grandkids, 18 or 20 great grandkids. We've got quite a family going there. A lot of them we got over here.
You might send again, I forgot to get everyone signed in for the minutes, it is required.
On that, down there, we've been working for over 50 years on the project. So it's just install a lot,
You pass that around too.
And why is
They're
there
called the dead man, and I'm thinking.
all the meetings?
Stones.
Thank you.
I find that to put that in my
Yeah,
book, too.
I mean, the minutes, which was the summary of last meeting, is that online?
Yeah, it'll be available. If you want to put down your email, or I have your email.
Yeah, I get everything on my phone, yeah.
Okay, thanks for coming.
Yeah, well, things come up with my logging company, I couldn't make it last.
But we appreciate it.
Well, hey, thank you for coming out here and putting up with it.
It was nice to meet you, and
I thought I did the first